Hey, this is David Plotz, CEO of CityCast. I have a favor to ask before we get to today's conversation. We're doing our annual listener survey, and it would really help us out if you took it. And even if you took it last year, we'd be grateful if you took it again, because we can't use last year's data. Please go to citycast.fm/survey to take the survey. It's only 7 minutes long, we know, because we timed it. That's citycast.fm/survey. And when you take the survey, you'll also be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card and CityCast swag, that great CityCast swag. citycast.fm/survey.
Today on CityCast Nashville, we're talking about our independent music scene. Joining us is Chris Cobb, a 22-year Music City veteran and former owner of the legendary Exit In. Chris is here to tell us all about 615 Indie Live, a brand spanking new music festival happening on Saturday, February 1st. Spanning 14 independent venues across Nashville, the festival features a widely diverse lineup of artists and raises funds for the Music Venue Alliance Nashville and its Emergency Relief Fund. Chris shares the challenges of organizing such an ambitious event, why indie venues are essential to Nashville's soul, and how we can preserve these cultural landmarks in a rapidly changing city. It's Tuesday, January 28th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Chris Cobb, Nashville royalty in the music biz. Welcome to CityCast Nashville.
Thanks for having me.
It really is such an honor to speak with you, and I'm so pumped about this festival that you're launching. $15 ticket price. What is that about? We'll get into it. I want to hear, what was your original pitch for 615 Indie Live, and how did it evolve into this full festival?
The elevator pitch? You want the elevator pitch?
Yes, I'm Oprah. Pretend.
Okay.
Give me your pitch.
All right. I think the original one sheet from a long time ago said that 615 Indie Live would support Nashville's independent music venues, which had been recently designated as threatened by the Nashville Independent Venue Study, which was like a years plus long study that Metro did. The event would drive business to these independent music venues during a historically slow time of year, raise awareness about what they are and why they're important, create new customers for these businesses, heavily support Nashville's independent local artists, and raise funds for Music Venue Alliance Nashville, the operating budget for that nonprofit 501c6, and specifically the Emergency Relief Fund that organization has for venues.
Wow. Just a couple
of
things.
There's a lot. There's layers to this thing.
I'm very impressed with your lineup. Number one, Pink Spiders. Super OG Nashvillians. My little sister dated Matt Friction's brother in 8th grade and dated several years. And so when Pink Spiders became famous, in the early 2000s, it was like such a big deal because we were like, oh, my sister used to love his brother. But so I was so happy to see Pink Spiders on the lineup. That booking really shows a commitment to Nashville's longtime indie scene. Who else in your lineup reflects that type of history?
One of the components of this event that makes it special and different, and to me, really, really cool, is every venue booked their own lineup.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's a completely decentralized and even collaborative process where all the bookers for every participating venue came together and programmed their stages themselves, but in communication with everyone else to ensure that we were trying to avoid direct head-to-head, centering collaboration over competition. So I think the lineup is badass myself, but no one person did it. And I think that's really the coolest component. I think that's why, there's this cool throwback stuff, right? Like Spiders, Space Capone, Richie, and I think Richie and Spiders are both at the end on the same show. So that probably wouldn't have happened if it weren't for this event, to be honest. But then we've got, Ergo Bria, we've got Black Opry, we've got 6-1 Tribe. So it feels like it worked, everybody doing their thing and doing what they thought was right for their stage and their venue created a pretty vibrant lineup that has old, it has new, it has a lot of different genres. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it myself.
Yeah, I was really blown away by how diverse the lineup is and how intentional it appears that the bookers were in putting together the roster. I personally follow bookmorewomen.com, who follows festival lineups each year, and they've stated on their website less than 25% of musicians on stage at major U.S. music festivals are women. But just going through your lineup, it really has proved that it is quite diverse. So I really do applaud you and all the bookers for that.
I hear you all the way, and they did a great job. And again, it was just organic. And here's the thing: when everybody comes out to this event on Saturday, February 1st, and we have full venues all across the city for one night, and people experience new artists who they've never seen and old artists who they wanted to see again, and their favorite venue and a new venue that they hadn't been to yet, that means we're going to get to do this thing again. And when we do it again, we've already had a lot of conversation about, I love the decentralized programming process that we had, and we want to repeat that. But I think we need to, and on top of that, and set aside some stages and some venues to allow us to put some diversity metrics in place and make sure that we're able to meet those. I think we did really good, and it was just a happy accident, but we can do better. And we're already talking about how we do better.
Very cool. Okay. So what else do people need to know? Full lineup is posted at visitmusiccity.com. What else?
We're at over 50 bands. We're at 14 venues, but 16 stages because we got multiple stages in a couple. So go take a look. Get your $15 ticket. That's a wristband that gets you in everywhere. Those tickets are $15 because of Visit Music City. They stepped up. They wrote the check. Over 50% of the cost of this event is in the bands. So please know that that check that Visit Music City wrote, over half of it went to the artists that are performing. What else can I say? Download the app. We were so fortunate that eTix wanted to be an incredible partner for us. They built us a $50,000 app for free, a real festival app. You can build your custom schedule in there. You can buy our merch. You can see where everybody else is going in there.
Do you have to have the app like as your ticket to enter? You know, at the Blue Room, you have to do that. You have to have their app.
You do not.
Yeah,
I'm old.
okay.
I'm an old dude myself.
Me too.
You don't have to have the app for anything.
Okay.
The full event schedule is on the website, so you can go look at it there. But the easiest way to look at it is definitely in the app. And the only way to really build your custom schedule, unless you're writing it all down on a piece of paper or making a spreadsheet, I guess, is to do it in the app by selecting the shows that you're going to go to. And since you asked, you have to have a wristband to get in. We have 2 box office locations, one at Eastside Bowl and one at Cannery. So everybody who buys a ticket is going to have to come pick up their wristbands at one of those 2 locations on either Friday night before or Saturday day of, starting at noon. We've got our official opening party out at Eastside Bowl. There's music on the low volume lounge stage that whole time. There's half price bowling. If you've been there, you know that it's incredibly vibey. You know that you can get a shepherd's pie if you're hungry, my personal favorite. So come out to the opening party, pick up your wristbands, check out the merch, check out some of the badass bands on the stage in the lounge, and maybe bowl around. But no, you don't even need a phone to get in. Old school paper wristband on the wrist, club style. Let's go.
Hell yeah. We're back with Chris Cobb talking about 615 Indie Live, which benefits the Music Venue Alliance Nashville, specifically the Emergency Relief Fund. What is that?
Music Venue Alliance Nashville is a local nonprofit. We started it all the way back in 2017 when we started to see the playing field just continue to kind of tilt in the direction of corporatization and large entities. And we started to think that we probably needed to figure out how to band together for the health of Nashville's ecosystem, our businesses, the original emerging artists that have called Nashville home, for decades and decades and decades. We didn't do anything with it until 2020. And then, we were all closed, and independent venues had this moment where we kind of all learned that they existed and they had a name, and we came together, nationally at that point, but we also came together locally. We got MVAN kind of actually launched and out into the world, and it existed as an emergency resource and a way to get money to venues and artists during COVID closures. But now we're into 2.0. And so it's a membership-based organization. I think we have 16 or 17 independent venues and promoters who are members of the org. And we exist to support those entities, and we exist to advocate on behalf of those entities, mostly at the local level, but a little bit at the state level as well. The Emergency Relief Fund is a fund that exists within MVAN that can grant money to our members if they're in a time of need. There's a handful of those types of opportunities for these types of entities, but most of them are really emergency disaster related, was what we've learned. So fires, floods, so on and so forth. And we had some venues here in times of need, and they were unable to access funding from anyone else. So last year, we decided that we needed to get that figured out and kind of make it easy for local venues and promoters to get money if they don't qualify for these other places where they could potentially receive a grant. So the Emergency Relief Fund's rules around who can receive a grant are just a lot looser. So like literally, if you can't meet payroll, you can't pay your rent, and you just need a little bridge to get you from A to B, MVAN will consider that kind of a need. And I'm not aware of other organizations that consider those kind of business specific, like, look, if we don't pay our bills this month, this venue is going to disappear. So our first one went out to Dark Matter last year as they were in process of converting from a for-profit business to a nonprofit venue, which they are now. They are a 501c3 community nonprofit. But they were going to close if they weren't able to put, about $10,000 in the bank just to pay the bills in that interim. And so MVAN was able to grant $5,000 from its emergency relief fund, and Visit Music City came to the table and matched that grant. Dark Matter still exists, thank God. And that's the emergency relief fund and MVAN.
Wow. Your festival spans over 14 different independent venues across the city. What makes a venue independent, and why are these types of venues so vital for Music City?
Oh, that's a great question. And it depends on who you ask. This movement was really started in the UK about 10 years ago by an organization called Music Venue Trust. They use the term grassroots music venues. We use the term independent music venues in the US. It's the same thing. NIVA, the National Independent Venue Association, which is our national organization for independent venues and promoters, has its definition. MVAN has its definition that's on the website, mvan.org, if anyone is super curious. But to simplify it for you, it's locally owned, right? So these are really like mom and pop businesses is one way to think about them, or Main Street businesses. These are micro businesses. They're owned by a person or a couple of people. They probably support a fairly small staff. They don't have a bunch of locations. You can't have multiple locations in multiple states to be a member of MVAN, for example. And the engine of their business is live music on their stage, typically original live music on their stage. And when I say engine of the business, what I mean is if there isn't a original band on that stage, there are no customers in that venue. And those customers in that venue, they paid to get in to see that band. Either they purchased a ticket or they paid a cover charge, and that revenue goes to that band on stage. I hope that didn't sound too complicated, but to try to reiterate, it's a really small micro business. It's a local business. And if it weren't for local original independent artists, it wouldn't exist. That's an independent venue to MVAN.
Mm-hmm. So what's the relationship between these indie venues? Do they work together to support each other, or is it more every venue for itself?
What a fun question. Were you looking for the tea?
Of course.
Look, we had this like aha kumbaya moment in 2020 when we were all closed. And prior to that time, really not because anyone didn't like each other, but because everyone is just too damn busy working every day to worry about what anybody else is doing to a great extent. There wasn't much connectivity before COVID. The silver lining, if you will, for independent venues of COVID is it did bring everyone together. Most of them probably still wouldn't exist because of, the federal shuttered venue operator grant program that put $16 billion into venues and promoters across the country during COVID, the largest public funding of the arts in the history of the United States of America. But I digress. We do pretty good. We get along pretty well. There's times when competition, is the focus of a certain conversation or a certain situation that we might be dealing with as a group. But we always come back to the belief that We value collaboration over competition. You have to agree to that to join IMVAN. You have to state and certify that you and or your venue or promoter entity believe that statement. And the truth and reality of the matter is that the rising tide rises all the boats, and all these venues, all these entities, all these local promoters who put on these shows, they're all very, very similar boats, and we all need the tide to rise for any of us to come up.
All right, we got to talk about Exit In, of course.
Do
as
we?
former, do we? Do you want to? I wonder if you're tired of talking about it.
No, let's
let's
get
into it. Well, I grew up here, a very, very special place in my heart, Exit In. We all rallied for it. I donated to the GoFundMe, but it didn't seem to make a difference. And as a former owner of such a legendary venue, what would you have done differently?
Is this real talk?
Please, real talk.
Thank you to everyone who rallied around Exit In and me, if that was the case during that time. It was incredibly challenging. First, the building burned. Well, Hurry Back caught on fire in December of 19. It took us 6 months to get Hurry Back open. We opened in January. And then in March, I remember being on like News 5 or something, like wiping tables and taking out bar stools because we were social distancing. And then a week later, we were closed. We were closed for 14 months. Had to lay off pretty much the entirety of the staff, which was one of the worst days of my 22-year career here in the city. And then, we were closed, and we tried to live stream and all the crap that everybody tried to do, and none of it worked. We were trying to deliver beer and pretzels, and anyway, let's not talk about it too much. It was really hard, and then we reopened in the summer of 21, and then the building sold right then. Mm-hmm. And we got kicked out. I was after 18 years. It was really terrible. It was really difficult on so many levels. What would I have done differently? I don't know. I think there's like a couple of different paths, that I could have taken. One of the answers, if I'm being really honest, is I may have just folded and not fought. And I don't know if that's the answer that people want to hear, but continuing down the path of full transparency, I have the global settlement agreement on my desk, and I just have to get to the notary and get it signed. And so that all happened through mediation at the very end of last year, a couple of months ago. And we're signing that settlement now. And it's been a really, really hard, expensive road to get there. And again, if we're being really, really honest, in hindsight, I don't know that there's any way I was ever going to win. I kind of wish I had just walked away. And I hate that. It's not necessarily a message of hope. It's a message of the fact that the legal system in our country is so damaged that, look, if you're thinking about getting entangled legally, if the other party has exponentially more money than you, my advice would be to please don't. And I'll leave it at that. So I would have done that. I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question, but where I'm at today with the context I just gave, part of me really wishes that I hadn't fought and I had just known it was time to fold them and go do something else.
What can Nashville do to better preserve the independent venues that are still fighting to stay open?
I like that question a lot better. I mentioned the independent venue study earlier. That is an incredible document that has very specific action items that the city can take, that codes can take, that Metro can take, that the mayor's office can take. Anyone can view the Nashville Independent Venue Study if you're so curious to dig in. It is very detailed, it's very in-depth. It is a long document, but if you're really into this stuff, it's a really, really incredible read. Specifically, the root of this issue is the dirt, right? Is the buildings. And we're going to stop short of getting into whether or not anyone should be allowed to own land in this country. We're not going to go there. We don't have time. That's a whole other podcast. And especially in the South, property rights are incredibly strong still. If we were in New York or we were in California, this would have been a completely different story and we'd be having a completely different conversation. But, we're in Tennessee, and the sad cycle is, independent, arts-driven people come into a neighborhood that no one else really wants. They're the source of reviving it. They make it hip and cool. Outside money comes in and takes over and buys the property and builds up, right? That's the cycle. That's a 200-year-old cycle. London's got it worse than us. New York City's got it worse than us. San Francisco's got it worse than us. But we got it pretty bad here these days, as we all know. And so at the end of the day, if we want to prevent, what's happened to other places like Exodus or Mercy Lounge or so on and so forth, we have got to fix that ownership problem. And those trusted operators, if we're going to use those terms, those people who are part of the community, who've been doing it for years and years and years, they've built that trust. The fans come to their place because of who they are and what they've done and what they've built and how they treat people. The bands want to play their places because of who these people are and all the blood, sweat, and tears through over the years. Those people have to stay. And we have to figure out a way to ensure that their buildings aren't being pulled out from under them. A specific way to do that is through a cultural land trust. That is being done in other parts of the world and other parts of the country right now. It's not being done in Nashville, Tennessee. So that's where a trust could come in and buy the building, keep the operator in place. But there's other ways too. I mean, so cultural trusts are probably the leading way to actually solve the problem, but loans can help. Grants can help. We just have to figure out a way that when, you get into this and your building's worth $100,000 or $200,000, and then at the end of your lease, 20 years later, it's worth $6 million. How do you not get kicked out?
All right, last question. Chris Cobb.
Already?
I know. It's a 20-minute podcast, unfortunately. But I'll see you February 1st. As a Music City veteran with over 22 years invested in the scene, how would you rate Nashville's soul right now? Do you feel the city is leaning too heavily into corporate interest, or is there still hope for indie artists and venues to thrive?
Well, there has to be hope. There is absolutely hope. There's always going to be the next generation of really smart, really well-meaning, really vibrant kids who are going to come in and help us fix the mess that we have created. And therefore, we have hope. We have hope in the youth. Nashville is corporatized. Decisions were made many administrations ago at the metro level that have assured that corporations are going to rule the city, and that's not going to change. So what we have to figure out is some balance, right? Because the pendulum has swung way, way out of whack. This is not the place where it was even 5 years ago, where you could come with just a little bit of money and a dream and make something happen. You have to be incredibly capitalized now to carve a niche out in the city. And that's not good. And I don't want it to sound like I'm demonizing corporations, because I'm not. That's another, we could do that on a different podcast. But Oracle and Amazon don't want to hurt the culture. That's not on their list of things. The developers from outside of the city, who are making incredible profits here, they're not set out to kill culture. It's just an unfortunate derivative a lot of the time. Amazon does a ton in this city to put resources into our creative culture and our music scene in Nashville, Tennessee. We need every corporation. We need every corporate entity. We need everybody at the top of the food chain in the city who's making a ton of money. And hey, by the way, let me point out, the reason they want to be here, the reason they're in Nashville, is because of our music. Let's be honest. Let's be real. Let's talk about it. We all know it. The fastest growing metros in the entire country are ones that are music centered. It's a fact. The details are there. So what we need now is a seat at the table. And we need our elected officials to be bold. And we need them to be willing to go to Oracle and say, hey, when we're doing our deal with the council district, with Metro, with the mayor's office, with the state, music's going to be in the deal. It's not going to be an afterthought. We're not going to come back to it later. It's going to be built into the deal. And we have to build our culture into all of these deals going forward, or it's going to go somewhere else. We all have friends who have left, and we got to make sure that stops.
Oh, Chris Cobb, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you at the opening night party and then all day, February 1st.
Thanks, Marie.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!